Hi, welcome to Life Between Coasts. This is our very first episode, and I'm your host, Leah. Here at Life Between Coasts, we're hoping to achieve bringing people together with the theory of synchronicity. Now, many of you might not have a name for everything that happens to you, but these are what they call universe whispers, patterns that you might see, or numbers, or just signs. Something as simple as thinking of somebody and then a phone call happening when you haven't spoken to the person in over a year, or thinking or pondering of a question. How is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? And then not seeking the answer, but then the next book you open having the answer displayed right there in front of you. Or finding a number or seeing a number frequently over the next few days and exclaiming to yourself, wow, that number's following me. I should play the lottery. You shouldn't play the lottery. You should seek what that number is telling you. If you find the reason for that number, that's giving you direction in your life. So my job here is to teach you to seek out those synchronicities, because I've followed them ever since I was about 14 years old. And I can tell you they've impacted my life in a tremendous way. The goal is to trust your intuition and respond to the guidance that the universe is teaching you. So to begin, my first step is to tell you a little bit about me and why I think I'm qualified to teach you about these or this. 45 years old. I'm from the great state of Michigan, and I'm the sole survivor of my family. That's kind of hard to say.
I know.
This is my legacy. I don't have any children. My name stops with me. This journey is going to be extremely healing for me. And I hope it will be healing for you too. If there's anyone out there that feels lonely or alone, and you hear a story or somebody telling about their journey, I hope you can take some information from that and know that every obstacle, there is a way around it. Every challenge in life, there is a way through it. And it's my job to guide you to believe the same. So let me begin. So 45 years ago, I was brought into this world on April 26th. 26 is a big number in my life, and you'll learn about what 26 means to me as we go through this. That is my universal number. It's my angel number, my guiding number, and it's been following me ever since the day that my dad died. And that is the number as to why I've pursued to do this podcast for you. When I was born, my brother was 2.5 years old, but had already been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. It wasn't really It was not to say that I was not intended, but the joke was that I was a result of a quickie. My mom wasn't convinced to have any more children, and I came along. And she was ecstatic that she had a healthy child. But the focus wasn't on me, and that's okay. but the focus was on David. Cystic fibrosis during that period of time, they didn't know where the chromosome was. They didn't know what the illness cause was. They just knew that it was genetic. And they could only help and treat the symptoms as best as they could for children. So they did not live long lives. Today, people are living well into their 50s and living full lives with this disease. Back then, they barely made 10. David died in 1983 at the age of 7, 14 days after his 7th birthday. But you want to talk about the power of a 7-year-old? He's pretty amazing. We had a cat named Snowball. The only reason why we had the cat was because of him. My mom was allergic. She didn't want any cats. We also had a rabbit. His name was Harvey. When David died, on the day that he died, both Snowball and Harvey were found dead. Harvey in his cage, Snowball in the adjoining lot next to our home. That little boy came back and took his animals with him. My mom told me after he died that I confused my reality with fantasy. I think he came back and talked to me. Now, some people might think that could be crazy talk, but hear me out on this one, because many years later, one of my many cousins, a friend of his, purchased that same home, and he was raising two of his 2 young children in that home. And at different points in their life, when both children were less than the age of 5, reported back to their father at, again, 2 different times that they were playing with a little boy named David who liked to eat cookies. So that was a traumatic experience, going back to his death. Unfortunately, at age 4, I don't have many memories of him. But the strongest memory in my mind is of him actually at the funeral home, lying in the casket with his stuffed animals and blanket and his tennis shoes with E.T. on the side, because E.T. was the movie of the year. So now our family of 4 became a family of 3. My dad, he was good. He was a good man. He had some troubles. He had some issues. During that period of time, he struggled to handle the death of a child. But wouldn't anybody have gone through that as well? You're not supposed to bury your child. They're supposed to bury you as a parent. I'm certain that's what he went through. My mom stood by him. And in the times when they did get really rough, she reminded him that he had both a wife and a daughter still living for him. And that was able to pull him through to the next chapter. Soon we sold that house and moved to another. I think I was in 2nd grade, halfway through. And we were only at the 2nd house for about a year. My mom didn't like the corner. It was a busy street corner. And then we moved again, halfway through 3rd grade, to another home. And we were at the lake at that one. And it was nice. And life seemed okay. And it seemed like it was moving in the right direction. My grandmother lived with us briefly during that period of time. I thoroughly enjoyed that. We used to read the unabridged dictionary and do crossword puzzles. Now, mind you, I was only 9 or 10 years old, but I still have the thesaurus and dictionary and synonym and antonym book that she purchased for me back then. That was a big time in my life. I built my vocabulary. I learned a lot. And I valued the time that she was there. We always talk about memories. And today, for instance, I was speaking with somebody and we were talking about what a memory of a person, what the smell. If you catch the scent of a cologne or the smell of a flower, how that brings back memories. My grandmother wore a perfume called Ombre Rose. In fact, I probably haven't smelled it since the day that she's left us. And that was in the early 90s. Well, actually, 1991. But even while she lived with us, in the afternoons, I'd return home from school. And I'd climb into her bed because she always had the AM radio playing with Ernie Harwell calling out the Tigers baseball game. And you could smell her on her pillowcase. And it was so comforting. She moved out and got her own apartment because she felt she was an inconvenience. And then shortly after, her heart gave out and she wasn't with us anymore. But the influence that she put on me about education, about reading, about understanding the processes and the people around us, the conversations that we would have, that's what built me. That's what built my character. The relationship with her, the relationship with my parents. We weren't wealthy people growing up. We were not wealthy in any sense of the word when it came to money. But our house was filled with love. So even though I was raised an only child, most of the people that are on the outside, when they think of only children, they think they're spoiled. They think they're given everything that they want. And that may be the case, but the fact is they just don't have to share. So it's just the same as buying your child a video game player, but they have to share that same with their siblings. I didn't have to share. And so for those people that would have commented that I was spoiled, it wasn't spoiled in monetary things or material items, but it was absolutely spoiled in love. I had the love of both of my parents. They were both very interested in my life. I talked to my mom every single day from the point that I graduated high school. Every single day. Then there was one day that she called me and she was in the hospital. She had had this massive pain in her side and she couldn't take it anymore. And I was driving home from work that day. And she says, "Leah, it's cancer." It's stage 4. It's pancreatic cancer. And in 2004, unfortunately, as we make strides in treatments and the way that people are, there wasn't anything they could do for her. She tried treatment. It only made her sick. We had to close her into a dark room for days after she took treatment. And then one day she said, I can't do this anymore. And so she opted for quality versus quantity. And when she chose quality, that was fine. She wasn't in pain. She went to hospice. Well, we had hospice at home for her. And the nurses came in, and family came in, and friends came in, and everybody was so supportive. And the one thing that, towards the end, she said to me is that she only had one regret in her life. And that one regret was not instilling faith in me. And my response to her was, that's all right, Mom. I'm pretty sure that I'm not happy with any higher being at this moment. I'm 25 years old, and the most important person in my life is about to die. I'm not married. I'm not set in my career. I don't even know not even that. I don't even know what my path is, where I'm headed. And he's taking her from me. Her response is, God will only give you the things that you can handle. And I said, what if I don't want to handle this? And she told me I didn't have a choice. And then she went on to tell me that, you know, your father can't be alone. And that I needed to be accepting of anybody that he brought into his life. And that I needed to be open to understanding that he needed to have a companion. A few months later, she was dead. That was a tough year, 2004. My mom was one of 8 girls. The first one to pass away out of the 8 was just separated by one of the sisters. They were both in their 50s. My Aunt Cindy died at age 54. 3 weeks later, my mom was diagnosed, and 7 months after that, she was gone. My dad also lost his best friend in a horrific snowmobile accident. They were on their way home, back to the cabin that they had up north, that my parents purchased. And Mike and my dad are coming down the main road, 500 yards from the road that the house is on, and Mike hit head-on into a car. Died in my dad's arms. That was in January. My grandparents came back to Michigan, or moved back to Michigan in that December. That would have been my dad's mom and her second husband, my Papa Mark. They were both quite ill when they came back, and we lost them in May. So in a very, very short period of time, we lost the close friend, almost brother-like figure to my dad, my aunt, my mother, my grandmother, and grandfather. It was a tough period of time. What my mom didn't tell me was that there was going to be a shift in my life, that I was no longer going to be a child, that I now became the parent of a 52-year-old man. That would be my father. I love him dearly, but unfortunately, he wasn't somebody that I could turn to. He died October 29th of 2003. It was a very, very tumultuous time for him. And unfortunately, his death was much more traumatic than I expected it to be. When my mom died, I shifted from talking to her every day to talking to him every day. That was our cycle. Every day after work, I'd call him, check in on him, see how his day was. And then there was a shift. There's a period of time, probably a good 10 years, that if I didn't talk to him by 2 p.m., I couldn't talk to him that day. He turned into a heavy drinker. And became a recluse. I couldn't get him to visit me. Even when I tried to get him down here just to pay him, it was more just to spend time with him. But he didn't see it. His goal was just to party. Since October of 29, since October of 2023, since the day that he died, the number 26 has been following me. Now, like I said, I was born on the 26th of April, and it is a significant date to me. And that's why I believe that he's actually using it to guide me to do this podcast for you. The numbers 2 and 6 call for balance and harmony. I am an entrepreneur. And my common thing of saying is, I'll do anything that makes me money as long as it's legal. But I mostly deal with real estate and taxes. I've had a tax practice for 17 years. I have been a real estate agent for 20 years plus. But everything has very square corners. It's very governmental, contracts, numbers. This is how you do things. 2 and 6 calling for balance and harmony made me seek out a creative outlet. This creative outlet is where we're sitting today. So the number 26, on April 26th, 2004, I sat in a doctor's office with my mother and my father. And the doctor at the other end of the desk looked at us all three sitting there and said, "Rebecca, this will be life-ending for you." On October 26th, I sat in an oncologist's office in Traverse City and listened to those same words delivered to my father. "There's nothing that we can do for you. You won't be able to handle any chemotherapy or radiation." And that's understandable, because while waiting for this oncology appointment, my dad fell and broke his hip. Had to have emergency surgery and was in an assisted living briefly until we could figure out what the next step was. This was a Thursday. We saw the oncologist. We left there, went out to lunch. He begged me to take him home. And I said, "Dad, I can't. It's not set up to get you in. We don't have a wheelchair. I have no walker. We have to go back there. Tomorrow we'll come back and we'll get you out of there." My intent was to bring him home. I thought, well, hell, he'll do hospice at my house. He'll move in with us. We'll take care of him. He'll be here. He'll tell me about his house, things that I need to know, well pump, electrical system. He built the house, so he should know. The next morning, I get a phone call. He's at the emergency room at the hospital, and he has a GI bleed. I got there. I walked in. He shared a few words with me and then fell silent. The doctor informed me that I couldn't transport him, that there was nothing that they could do for him then, but he was not stable enough to go anywhere. So all I could do was transfer him to a room and watch him die. I thought I was going to bring him home. So he was dead by early Sunday morning. I kissed him on the forehead,
thanked the nursing staff, and headed back to his house. When I was at his house that morning, I started putting things away. I had picked up his suitcase from the assisted living. And my dad, the way that he carried his money, he didn't have a money clip, but he had I call it a money fold. So he would hold his license and his cards folded in half, his money around it, and put in his front pocket. And that's how he always held his money. When I unfolded that money that morning, it was $26. The Lions, for all of us Michigan fans, went on to win their game that day, 26-0. Ever since that day, 26 has been following me. So here I am. Again, the sole survivor of my family, ready to embark on a new journey and open up this new chapter of my life to be shared with you in hopes of finding a connection, one that will bring us together as a country, as a people, as humans, because we've all had bad things that have happened in our life. There's fights, divorce, death, but it's how we react to it is what keeps us going. Instead of choosing sadness, even though it's hard, we need to choose happiness. And we need to choose joy. And we need to choose kindness. And we need to bring those things back together to each individual. That's just a snippet into my life. There's a lot more where that comes from. But the few things that I've established along the way have been instilled to me, or for me, or by me. I don't know. What one is that one?
There are many people out there that don't quite know what a synchronicity is, but have experienced them throughout their entire life. A synchronicity is a theory that was formed by Carl Jung, and it's described as a meaningful coincidence. And that meaningful coincidence isn't just meaningful to everybody, the general population. It's meaningful to the person that it happens to. So when I tell you that the number 26 was following me, it's meaningful because that number is meaningful to me. That number is my birth date. It's the date that I learned that both of my parents were going to leave me. It's the date that, or it's the number, I should say, that my father has been using to guide me on this journey to bring me to you today. The synchronicities that happen in life are happening all around us. Sometimes we're too busy to see them. Sometimes we're unwilling to see them. And sometimes we're just not aware that they're there. Like I said earlier, when you think of somebody that maybe you hadn't talked to in over a year, you create an invisible tunnel of sorts. And that connection is formed in the universe where they mm. When you think of someone that you haven't spoken to in a very long time, and then your phone rings the next day and it's them, that's a synchronicity. When you see the same number repeating itself, it could be a 3-digit number, it could be a 2-digit number. Maybe it's a number that's only meaningful to you or significant to you, or maybe somebody that's departed. They're using that number to get your attention. Let's say you're driving down the road and you're thinking of the person that has left you. And when I say left, I'm saying departed, is no longer with us. And let's say you're thinking fondly of a memory of them, and a song appears or starts to play on the radio. That song is a message from that person. Specifically, I screwed that one up too. I meant a song that reminds you of that person. Sometimes I get nervous here. The key is that we recognize the signs and we trust our intuition as we move forward. I'm trying to explore those hidden connections that connect all of us, not just as clients or the fact that we both live or all live in one state or one town, but connect us on a different playing field. It was my mother that brought synchronicity into my life. I was about 14 years old, and what we do, we would bring home a new word that we learned. So, for instance, a vocabulary word, typically 10 digits or more, or 10 or letters or more. And we had to be able to define it and use it in a sentence. I was probably 13 or 14, so just going into high school, 9th grade. And she brought that word home to me. And from that day forward, I started to seek out synchronicities and connections with everybody that I came into contact with. I was always searching for that common ground that would connect me some way with the person that I was interacting with. I use synchronicities as confirmation in my life that I'm on the right path. You see, I didn't make all the right choices, but really at the end of the day, what are the right choices? I made choices, good or bad, and they've all affected my life, but maybe this has always been the path that I was supposed to be on. Maybe even if I made different choices, that I still would have ended up in the same place. Synchronicity blends multiple factors. So we talk about destiny, we talk about fate, we talk about those meaningful coincidences. We also talk about reincarnation, and we talk about karma. Many of those things intertwine, but aren't necessarily as impactful on our lives until we reach a certain point. As I was telling you the story of my mother, and one of the last things that she had stated to me that she regretted in life was not instilling my faith. And I told her that that was okay because I wasn't very happy with the person that she was, or with the being, not the person, but with God at that moment, because he was taking her away from me. That I would seek out my own way. And during that time, and the 21 years that have followed, I've established my own path, but it's not been with just one religion. I've learned from other religious leaders. I've learned from other religions based on experience in speaking with other people, just asking questions. And that has brought me to this point where I'm able to explore all types of religion and adapt those items that are true to me and true to my heart. And that also includes spiritual guidance from things that are not necessarily mainstream. There's a religious element to synchronicity, but then there's also the spiritual element. And I believe the spiritual element also involves some metaphysical thinking, perhaps some scientific. With that in mind, the idea is that we're going to be inviting perfect strangers to this set to engage with us and tell their story so we can find those synchronicities that connect us all. The ideal storytellers that will be invited in will be one of three types of people. The first person will be somebody that's experienced the synchronicities throughout their life or recognizes those patterns and applies them to their daily living. The second person that might describe their journey that's never been able to identify a synchronicity within their life. But that's because they didn't know what to look for. So as they tell their story, we're able to find those synchronicities that have affected them during their journey. And the third person might be somebody that has experienced chaos their entire life. And when you're basically a tornado, you're not able to see those patterns, to hear the whispers that the universe wants to send your way. So we'll be able to identify ways of being more open to what a synchronicity is, because we're not trying to sell you anything. The only thing we are trying to sell you is the belief in a possibility that the universe is sending whispers your way. And whether you want to believe that this is a God thing or a universe thing, we're going to give ourselves the wonderful opportunity of speaking to some religious leaders, inviting people in from all cultures, all levels of livelihood, all societal backgrounds. The beautiful thing about synchronicity is it brings us to a different playing field, a level playing field, one that we can forget about gender, we can forget about color, race, background, where you've come from, how big your bank account is or isn't. We're all equal in the eyes of the universe. So let's start to find those connections. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time.